this sermon today is different from any other sermon that I've done this whole month due to the fact that this is hard. Raising a child in this day and age is difficult. You can't sit here in 2019 and say, I got to do it just like my mama did, or just like your daddy did it. Because if you did it just like they did it, you'll be downtown. I was telling the 8 o'clock service, I remember one time I was at Kmart. Y'all remember Kmart? And with my mama, and I was hiding in between the clothes. And my mama grabbed me out of those clothes after she finally found me and beat me at the blue light in front of everybody. And you know what's amazing about it? The police wasn't called. Nobody showed up to the house to make sure she was treating me right. I mean, I was being beaten, and they kept asking me my name, and I wouldn't say Toby. I was on the block, and people just walked by and looked at me. You do that today, and you're going to have trouble on your hands. So don't give me the spiel what my mama used to do. What your mama did was great, but now we got to do the same thing, but we got to change our approach. Okay, so I want you, it ain't gonna be that many amen, because most of us are parents, are learning how to be parents, and this is some stuff I wanted to share with you that I'm learning. Let me say this, I have a 13-year-old son, so not that I've already obtained, man, this is one of the most frustrating processes that I have ever been involved with. Two things have been the hardest thing I've ever had to do. One is lead an African-American church, and second is raising a child. Because when I get adjusted to where he was, he's at another place. Kids, young folks, teenagers who are in here, young adults, let me sing you a song. You'll understand it better. So here's the problem that I am noticing in our current generation. I'm going to give you some scriptures, but I want to just talk to you. That we have become in this society experience rich while relationally poor. Let me say that to you again. We want our children to experience everything. But their greatest experience many times is experiencing your time. You can take them around the world. You can buy them everything that you could ever dreamt of that you wanted. But to buy them stuff but never buy your time is you to giving them an experience that voids them of what the true gift is the time of a loving parent. Now, don't brag about how many children you have, because even dogs know how to have children, but they don't know how to raise them. Anybody can have one, but very few people will invest in the time to raise one. Do you not know even weeds grow up without any fertilizer, without any water, without any cultivating of the land? It's going to grow up green. So just because you got a Facebook child don't mean that you really got one. Because what we like to do is take pictures of convenient moments with our children. But nobody sees the picture of you up all night, praying all night, all day. God, watch over this food. Y'all not going to have church with me? So let me say this to you, and I said it at the 8 o'clock service, that raising a child is a full-time job. If you ain't got time, don't lay if you're unwilling to stand. Okay? Because what is happening to us is we got people who have a child, but the reason that the school districts are struggling, the reason that the police system is struggling, the reason society is struggling, because we got folks who have grown up parents but are still 5 years old. because you've given them experiences, but you've never given them time. I remember the highlights of my time living with Martha and Aaron Day Sr. I don't really remember the stuff they bought me, but I remember events that were involved with their time. Thanksgiving was a big day for me, obviously. But I could remember my mother being up all night cooking. And while I was sleeping, I could smell food. And the next morning, I knew the whole family would be together, not for gifts, not for new hair, not for new nails, not for new lipstick, not for a new car. It was me being able to spend time with my family. Okay, I remember taking trips with my mom and dad. And I never can really remember where we were going, but I remember being in the car and hearing them talk to each other, but also hearing them having dialogue with me. We are in a generation now of two-parent households that children are still identified as orphans. Because daddy is out there doing his own thing, trying to be publicly popular. Mama's out there working 3 or 4 jobs, trying to pull it together. And in the midst, because of relationship, we birth a child that grows up with parents, but no parentage. Okay, so here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. This is something I struggle with. I stole this part out of Andy Stanley's book. There are 4 stages you and I need to look at. First of all, the discipline years, and I'm going to be very careful when I say this. The discipline years, he suggests in his book that was written in 2006 that it goes from 1 to 5. Training years goes from age 5 to 12. Coaching years goes from 12 to 18. And then friendship years goes from 18 on. Okay. Some of us are trying to be friends when we should be coaches. I'm preaching, y'all just don't want to have church. If you ever forego the discipline years, you can never go grab discipline years again after that age is gone. Now, in my generation, discipline went, and this discipline is, we're on television, so y'all work with me. Look at my eyes and look at my hand. I don't feel like getting no more letters. Discipline years. Okay, discipline years. Okay, are y'all with me? Don't make me work so hard. Discipline years from ages 1 to 5. Because I can't wait until they're a teenager to try to go back and get what I wouldn't do because they were too cute. If you won't discipline them, they'll discipline you. And I would prefer making them cry than allow them to make me cry. Amen, somebody. So here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. We get this out of order because, and my wife and I are struggling with transferring from discipline and training to coaching. Because the way we do it, or the way we were doing it, was I came from a discipline-rich family. Okay, no, I want you to catch it. My mother goes to this church. I keep giving her visitation cards to Concord because there's some things I don't want her to hear. But I come from a discipline. I mean, I was 15, 16 years old, and my daddy brought me to the brink of death and yanked me back in. I mean, he let me see 6 feet down in the casket, and I was laying there with my Bible on my hand, and right before they closed the casket, he yanked me and woke me back up. And that's when I learned scripture. Live at peace with all mankind as much as possible. I said, this man is crazy. I got to get out of his house. But you know what it made me do? It made me want to leave so I didn't have a 25-year-old child in his house. You know what? Because there was structure and rules there. You have to learn how to adjust to be a successful parent. Okay, let me give it to you again. You got to put down your phone. Because you can't parent looking at your screen while they are looking at their screen. I've seen whole families sit at dinner for an hour and a half and nobody talk because everybody's busy doing nothing. Okay. So let me tell you what my wife implemented that helps us. We play Uno at dinner. Yeah, nay, say Uno. Y'all ain't never seen Uno before? You know, where you had to match the numbers and the colors and all that. And while we are playing Uno, unconsciously he talks. He tells us everything that's going on in his life, at school, with friends, during a game, because everybody at dinner, you can't have your phone at the table. Okay, y'all just like the 8 o'clock service. Y'all don't want to have church. And what he thinks I am a prophet, because he would tell me something last week that I bring up 2 weeks later, that he can't understand how I got it. It's because I'm listening. Most of us can't raise a child because you ain't through raising you. So it's children raising children, because nobody wants to be mature enough to raise somebody who is not their friend. If you and your child are friends, somebody ain't doing something right. Y'all heard my son on the phone the other day. His friends were asking him to stay on a game later than his bedtime. And he said, I'm going to ask him, but my dad is mean. He ain't going to let me do it. And you know what I did? I walked past his room. I am doing something. You know, because if you got a teenager and y'all friends, is somebody saying yes. Is somebody saying what you want to do is okay. You got to, as a parent, there is no privacy. There is no, that's your room and don't come in it. You don't have a room. You don't have electricity. You don't have a phone. You ought to be up all night looking in their phone. It's your phone. Somebody gonna tell you what room they can't come in and they don't pay rent. You don't have a room. You are leasing a spot. This is the Hilton Garden Inn. You can't take that bed out of that room. You are just here only for one night. That's funny, but it's true. And the reason our kids are going down the wrong road is because you're letting them make grown-up decisions and their mind is not developed to handle what this world is providing them. We were blessed in my day to be forcefully ignorant to what was going on in the world because we were not privy to that knowledge. Only thing I knew was what was going on Jade Street. Now your child has a phone where they can access the world. You don't have to teach them. There's no Playboy magazines anymore. It's in their hand. Okay, y'all, you don't have to learn about sex from the neighbor across the street who ain't had none either, but he's telling a lie about how to have some. He can research it on YouTube. Y'all sitting there, don't laugh, it's the truth. Your child at 13 knows more than you know at 45. So the more they know, the more you got to be in their life. And for my single parents, your child is not a mistake. Okay, boy, this is tough. I don't care if you and Mr. didn't stay together. I don't care if she left. You are responsible for what God has given you. Can you imagine God giving you something to raise and you having trouble raising yourself? So if you're single, it's even more difficult because I can't let men come in my house and allow my daughter to see me close the door with somebody who hadn't closed the ring. I'm a single dad, and I can't let somebody come in and let my son see that I know how to lay, but I don't know how to stand. I got to have a standard. I got to have some consistency. I got to have some morals. I got to have some ethics. I got to have some truth, because the next generation is suffering because we've never gotten out of kindergarten. Let me say this. Let me say this. When you have children, you have foregone your right to be selfish. I wear this purple shirt all the time. And the reason I wear it because it's easy to wash, and it's a purple. I've had it for years. A purple shirt, and when I take it out to wash it, I don't have to iron it or nothing. And I'll wash it and wear it 2 or 3 times a week. And my son's gonna scold me and say, "Daddy, why you wear that shirt all the time?" And I said, well, one reason I wear it because I don't have the money to keep buying me new clothes. He said, well, where your money going? Now, this is a conversation we had. And I said, I said, because when I decided to have you, I gave up my right to be selfish, to buy me something new every day while my child goes suffering. I gave up my right to be about Paul when I had a Blake. So now my time goes into you, my efforts go into you, my finances go into you, my prayers go into you, so that you can be better than what Are y'all catching this thing? So for those of you who hadn't had children, don't have it until you're ready to stop being selfish. If you got a child and you let these stages go without you addressing them, first of all, ask God, God, help me to catch up. If you missed the discipline years and your child has never heard no, your child has never, no fear, no concern, no restriction, and you can't go back and get at 15 what you should have done at 5. So now you're going to have to pray double for your trouble and ask God, please intervene for when I was negligent. Okay. I'm about to come get you now. So there's 3 areas that we talked about over this week. And I brought this up to the staff, and we all kind of brought in what our thoughts were when it comes to looking at children. Number one, that you and I have to have some parental guidelines, some parental relationship. Everybody says parental relationship. In the book of Ephesians chapter 1, and just give me verse number 4. Ephesians chapter 1, verse number 4. Ephesians 6, verse number 4. Just Ephesians 6, verse number 4. The Bible says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, look what he says. Look what Paul says. Rather, bring them up in 2 areas. This is the discipline, and this is the coaching training. He says bring them up, first of all, in discipline. And then you add in instructions that come from the Lord. Okay, now catch it. You can't read Ephesians chapter 6 without going back to read Ephesians chapter 5. You don't have to go there. But in Ephesians chapter 5, verse number 21, the Bible says, everybody's subject to somebody. It says, first of all, it says, the man is subject to God, the wife is subject to her husband, and children are subject to their parents. So you can't get here successfully without everybody being under somebody. Brother, you ain't out on your own. You are subject to God. Sister, you ain't out there by yourself. You are subject to your husband and to God. And if your man is not there, don't worry about it. You're still subject to God. And children ought to be subject to both of them. Now, here's what's important. Paul says that the reason so many children are angry is because they are being forced to deal at 25 what they should have had to experience at 5. Y'all pay attention. That it's hard for their first time to hear no from a boss when they never heard no at home. The reason they can't stay married is because your son wants Jordans instead of Shaqs. But you will mortgage your house to give them something you can't afford instead of telling them that the family is on a budget. Okay, y'all not gonna help me. Your daughter got to have a new purse. And instead of saying, we're gonna go over here to Sam Moon and get one that looks just like it, because I would prefer having $5 in a $2 purse than having a $500 purse with 5 cents in it. I'm just crazy enough, because what you're doing, you're setting them up to have a man that can never please them, because you've given them everything that you can afford, and at the day of I do, bruh man ain't gonna be able. Because when you have some standards growing up, you got something to step into instead of getting everything day one. So what's the discipline? Discipline means that, first of all, he says, fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath. What are you talking about, Paul? First of all, that you provoke them when you're not present. Okay, many African-American boys are angry African-American men because daddy was not there. And because daddy was not there, we have trouble when we sing, we have a Father in heaven. It's hard for me to see the Father in heaven when my father on earth was negligent. Okay? So we create a generation of angry men because you can be even at home but not at home. You can be at home, you can even bring your check home, but be no better than the couch. Don't brag just because you stayed. Even the lamp stayed. But what asset does the staying do? Your family shouldn't function well without you being there. Listen to me, church. I want you to catch this. You ain't got to say, man, if you're a man and you can be gone for weeks at a time and nothing is upset at your house, you ain't worth nothing when you're there. If your children can function without talking to you for days on the end, you ain't worth. I try to, when I'm gone to preach somewhere and I'm trying to do God's business, it's not a week go by. When Blake was younger, he would act a fool at school by Tuesday. And it was like clockwork. I would be out with the pastors and I would have to step out of the luncheon. Because Melanie done called me, talk to this boy. And I would be able to say prophetically on the phone, Will, I'll be home Thursday. And by Wednesday, she would call me late that night and say, well, he's doing better now because in the morning, y'all know what's going to happen in the morning. It'll be all over in the morning. But some of us think that just because we laid it don't mean that we got to raise it. Your daughter is better, brother, when you're in their life. Because they need to hear I love you from you first so they won't be looking for that statement from a man who's trying to get what they have instead of getting what they need. Okay, all right. So parental relationships are important. Sisters, brothers, you got to be willing to discipline and instruct. I had the discipline down, but I struggled with the instruction. Because you only can take what you have learned through your experience. And you got to create a new experience off of what worked for you growing up. But you have to add in some new additives as the generations change. I can't do it just like Aaron and Martha, they did. I have to adjust how I do it. So I have learned that discipline can't last as long as it did for me. So now I'm in the coaching stage. And in the coaching stage, what God has allowed me to do, it requires me to listen more. And speak, listen to this, truth to power. What is truth to power? Is you sharing with your child what you should have done that you didn't, and how God brought you through even when you were playing the fool. Okay, y'all don't want to catch this. You ought to see my son's face when he hears that I flunked out of college at Southern University. Because all he knows is my dad is Dr. Day. He walked in my office and said, you got a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and a doctorate. Daddy, you are really smart. I said, no, I'm not. I just finally got into my calling of what God wanted me to do, and that's when it became easy. I said, man, I went to Southern. He said, why did you get kicked out? I said, because I was drinking and I was clubbing. Come on now. Only Kim and I are honest. The rest of y'all are sitting here like this. Patrick, I was out there drinking, would go to church on Sunday drunk. And the only reason I went to church is because Mama was going to call at 2 and say, what did the preacher talk about? And then I was crazy enough to go back to the night service drunk. Okay, because you had to go to morning service and night service. Y'all ain't gonna help. I'm sorry, Mama. I told you don't come this month to church. Out there just drinking and living a crazy life. And the whole time I was doing that, God covered me. That you need to stop acting like an angel when you know you were a hellion and the only thing that covered you was the grace. And I tell my son all the time, I don't want you to go through what I went through because I wasted years trying to be that when I found out I already had what I needed. So what's the relationship? The relationship ought to be mom and daddy, be mama and daddy, and stop trying to be homeboy, homegirl. My son and I are not friends. And that's not funny. We are not friends. We used to like each other, but now, and this ain't funny, I'm being honest, but now it is more adversarial the older he gets because there's a lion growing up in him. Well, there's a lion already owns the territory. No. I don't want you to laugh and miss the point. So what he's doing is he's trying to lay claim, and he's trying to figuratively, like animals do, urinate to set out their territory in some territory that will not be his. Y'all missing this? Y'all missing this? So I celebrate that the little boy is turning into a man, But I got to keep the man in check until the man really becomes a man and man up and handle his own business. I don't care how old he is. In my house, there are rules. Well, he's grown now. You ain't grown until you got your own. Y'all ain't gonna help me here. You ain't grown until you are alone. If he chooses to stay with me until 24, 25, you still got to be in the house by 12. Y'all see how quiet it got? I mean, maybe 11:30. You still can't have a girl in your room. I'm talking about for my house. Why is that so important, Pastor? Because if you don't set any rules, what benefit do they have to get their own? It's because it's work to be a parent. Not only is it a parental relationship, that's all right, I'm going to say amen for myself. Not only is the parental relationship, you not only need to parent and be involved with their life with discipline and instruction, you also need to put an element that many of us don't put, which is a relationship with God. But it's hard to sell something you don't hold. They ought to see you praying more than on Sunday. When you tell your story, you ought to tell your story with God in it. We live where we live because God has been good. You are able to wear what you wear because God provides. We are semi-healthy because God has been better to us than we would ever know how to be to ourselves. It tells us in Proverbs chapter 3, verse number 6. Look what the Bible says in Proverbs. Seek his will in all you do. Look what he'll do. And he will show you which path to take. Oh, that's a powerful statement. Because when you're raising children, you need to tell them that not only are you accountable to me, but you are accountable to God. Okay. God has a plan for your life. Y'all don't believe that? That God has a purpose for your life. But you can mess up the purpose by choosing your own path. And somewhere in the discussion with your children, you ought to stop talking about Fortnite. You ought to stop talking about if Durant is going to stay with Golden State. You ought to stop talking about if the Cowboys are going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. You ought to sit down and say, listen, God has great things in store for you. But if you don't choose him, he don't have to choose you. And one day, the transfer of power ought to take place. That they fear God more than they fear you. Because if I could get my child to respect God, then in turn, automatically, they're going to respect you. Because here's the dynamic. Most of us know how to raise a child as long as we can control it. But when you have the inability to control them, the only control you have over them is the influence you place in them. Don't miss this now. It is difficult when you can't tell your child to sit down. And it's even more difficult when you can't make them sit down. The other day, my wife said something to my son. And you know, I still parent from the couch. She parents on her feet. That means she's walking back and forth to the room. I'm on the couch. Hey! Y'all know that. Y'all know that. Come on, every daddy. What? I ain't gonna get up for nothing. What you say, boy? Say it again. I'm gonna get off this couch. He know. screaming from down the hall. Come on, I see some screamers right here. I see Deacon Sher. There's some hollowers. Too tired to get up, you know. And I heard him say something to his mother. And it was disrespectful. Don't all. I mean, my house is just like yours. We ain't walking through the house with Bibles, humming songs all the time. Every now and then we say the wrong thing. Y'all ain't gonna help me. Don't be sitting here. You did the same thing with your parents. And he said the wrong thing to his mother. And I got up and I went down there and I leaned into him. And he leaned back. Okay. And when we got up, after praying, I had to go to the other room and get myself together because I can't do to him what I used to do. So what I have to do now is say how disappointing to God when you make choices that God does not approve of. Catch this now. Patrick, he didn't cry when I leaned on him because I think he won. And I think he did, Jay. I mean, so the next day when he came home from camp, I had my gun out. I was just thinking. Looking down the barrel. Y'all ain't gonna help me here. Shotgun leaning up against. I was just, he walking down. This jugger here, crazy. But let me tell you when he did cry. He cried when I told him that God wasn't pleased with that. When your child is out of your possession, the only thing that keeps them from doing what the devil would want them to do many times is the influence that God had on them, but also the influence that they don't want to disappoint God and their parents. Does this happen to anybody? It's some more I wanted to do, but I didn't want to disappoint mom and dad. And when you really get in tune with God, you can see how God worked on your behalf when you wasn't working with God. So there's parental guidance, then there's a godly relationship. Y'all catching this? And then the third thing you got to pray for is the friendship relationship. Pastor, what does this have to do with anything? Proverbs 13, verse number 20 says this: walk with wise friends, and you'll become wise. Associate with fools, and you'll get in trouble. So not only do you need to pray for how to parent your child, and not only do you need to pray for God's presence upon your child, but you need to pray for the friends your child will choose. We'll get back to hollering next Sunday, but all of your work can go in vain if they hook up with the wrong person. That's why you need to know who they're talking to. That's why you can't close the door and check out. When I hear a new name that he's calling on the phone, who is Book? Oh, Book, we play on the same basketball team together. I said, well, next time we at the game, show me who Book is. Because I want to meet Book. I want to meet Book's mama. I want to meet Book's daddy. I want to know where Book lives. Because you done brought Book in my house. When I was growing up, my mama, not daddy was on the couch. Mama was all in our business. In our drawers, in our note. If we had computers, they would have been in our email. They would have been on our phone. My wife can't sleep right now. We're looking through and then come wake me up in the middle. Did you see? I said, is he dead? Is he in trouble right now? Is he in jail? Well, can't this wait till 8 o'clock in the morning and you can read me every text? Why is that so important? Because there is no privacy. You need to know if some moods change. You need to know if they don't want to talk as much as they used to talk. What's going on? They could have been on drugs for months and you not know it because you are so busy doing you that you didn't notice that there were new people coming to the room because you ain't involved at the house. And God will put people around you who are friends that will help you to be better if you pray about it. I not only pray that I raise them right, I pray for the friends. That's why I let him hang out with people here at church. I let him, sometime when he was younger, I would let him go with Brother Callahan to go get stuff for an after-school program. You know why? Because the same mindset was going to be dispensed to him from a different mouth. Deacon Sherman took him a few times to some place. Why would you do that? Because sometimes he'll listen to another man that's saying the same thing, because I got responsibility of discipline and instruction. Y'all catch that? When I was in college, God dispatched around us a core of people who knew different things in life. When I went out there to college, one of my great friends, he's a state trooper in Louisiana now. His name is Charles Blacknell, good friend, graduated from Carter right up the street. And one time we were at a club. That's when I was living long time ago. Because I don't mind being honest about my life. You can keep on hiding. That's why when Jay Will was singing the song, My Worship, I'm not just thinking about today. I'm thinking about what God brought me through. That's why I can't keep but to put my hands up, because I should have been dead a long time ago. I should have had some disease alone, but because of the goodness of Jesus. I was out there acting a fool and tried to, this way before I knew Melanie's, long time ago. I don't know where baby, it was a long time ago. Because tonight at 3 o'clock, who was, I didn't even know you existed. And I was trying to talk to this girl where she was dating the head Q of Suffolk. I didn't know it. In fact, we talked for 30 minutes. She didn't say it. I think they had their own relationship problems, because she should have said, that's my boyfriend over there. She waited for that brother to come tap me on the shoulder to tell me, why you talking to my girl? And one thing led to another. Y'all ain't gonna help me. But when you got praying parents, Charles Blacknell, who knew how to fight. Listen to me, I'm telling you, he used to call me Reverend. Before I went to any seminary, he used to call me Rev. Rev, we're going to go kick it tonight? I said, sure not. And we were sitting there, he said, this is what he said. He said, Rev, you need to go home. I said, no, we're going to fight. He said, Rev, have you seen that boy? You need to go home. About that time, Doolin said, come on, man, let's go. He was driving. They put me in the car, and we took off. And later on that night, here comes Charles. Back to the apartment. Man, that joker sure could fight, boy. And I said, Charles, why would you do that? He said, because I knew you couldn't handle it. And the reason I'm with you is to help you. Y'all missed it. When you got people around you that have been prayed over, God will send you a Charles when you think you can handle it yourself. Because there are friends who have come into your life who have made you better because they were a part of your life. You know how I got Charles? It's not because I was looking for a Charles. It's because a Martha Day was praying for a lost child while God was blessing her. It in turn blessed me. So what are you saying, Pastor? What are you saying? Parents, if you still got a child in your house, get on the job. Turn the phone off. Turn the tablet off. Turn the computer off and talk. Communication is still important. Listen to me. Don't be so busy don't be so busy yourself that you forget about your children. I know you're trying to get that third degree. I know you're trying to move up at your job. I know you're trying to start a company. I know you're trying to be successful in the community. But there is a window of opportunity that if you don't maximize, you will want it when you need it, but it won't be there. Y'all don't want to say it? Amen. I do my best to take care of my mother because my mother took care of me and she invested in me. You're going to turn around and need somebody one day, and you ought to be able to depend on your children. So don't be so busy doing you that you forget about them. Here's third. You can have all the riches in the world. They can be the best football player that Texas has ever seen. They can be the best basketball player. They could be the best soccer, whatever. But that means they could go to the top schools, Morehouse, or not Morehouse. We got some Morehouse folks. Let me try another top school. They could go to Howard. They could go, and those are top schools. That they could go to Prairie. They could go wherever. But if they don't have God, you can gain the whole world and lose your soul. What does it profit you? Because we got them in all this extra stuff, and they can't even learn about Jesus. And if the money don't come, and they don't make it to the NBA, and they're not in somebody's dance studio, they have to go back to really what got them there, which is God. So this is all I'm saying to you. You still got a child in your house, praise God. Work with them. Listen to them. Brother, if you got some children that don't live with you, you get right so you can start raising your child. It's more difficult if you have to do it from afar, but do your due diligence. Y'all hear me? Sister, if you got a man who you laid with, that you had a child with, let that man participate in raising a child. Don't use the child as a weapon to get back at him. Because at the end of the day, you're going to only hurt them. Sister, if you got some children and they are being raised by the father or raised by a grandparent or wherever they may be, that does not allow you to not be involved with their life. Because they need you. They don't need Big Mama every day. Big Mama is tired. Y'all not hearing me. Big Mama raised her children, and now Big Mama needs to be visiting you, not raising your child. Big Papa ain't too tired to be raising your children. Because parents, if you keep raising your grandchildren, that gives your child the license to go get more. Just now, I'm sweated out of suit trying to, hard to say, you preaching now. I'm about to, I got to check my blood pressure. I've been given 30. Oh, Jesus. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do it. Let's touch hands sitting right here. And I just want to pray for everybody in this, because everybody is connected to a child some kind of way. Yeah. Even if you ain't had your own, you know somebody who you are a part of helping to raise. It's people in place that God has strategically put in your life to help your children to be better. We're going to pray for that situation right now. And then the praise team will come. And anybody who needs prayer can come down. If you want to put Christ on the baptism, you can do that after this. Praise God. Thank you for entrusting us with enough that you allow us to procreate, to fulfill your destiny in raising children. God, let us not just be good producers, but not good raisers. God, help us to be involved in our children's lives. Help us to be attentive. Help us to be honest. Help us to be transparent. Help us to know roles. Help us to be parents and help children to be children. God, let's wait for friendship when it is appropriate. Help us to do right. Help us. I know this, God, that this is a tough sermon because people don't want to hear how to handle children. But God, touch us, guide us, keep us. This generation is falling apart because they're being forced to raise themselves. So now we have 25-year-old, 3-year-old minded people because they've never had the restrictions, the restraints that are needed to be successful parents. Help us, God, to be better aunts, be better uncles, be better cousins, be better church leaders, be better youth leaders, be better young adult leaders, be better pastors, be better brothers, be better sisters, because it still takes a village to raise one child. God, help us, guide us, and keep us. Help this church to be better because we deal with real stuff in a real sense to make the home better. Please bless us and keep us. In your son's name.